Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's vlog is going to be a Q&A on my exchange in Singapore. So I've been in Singapore since August of last year and I'll be leaving by the end of May. So basically on my social media a few weeks ago I basically asked people to send in some questions about kind of any questions, and a lot of them were kind of study exchange orientated, like my life in Singapore kind of thing. So I just decided to pick 10 of the questions and basically just answer them. So let's get started. So my first question is, I got a hair on my mouth. Yeah. What is the most interesting thing that I have learned about Asian culture since living in Singapore? I think that the most interesting thing would be probably the amount of different races, ethnicities that actually exist within Singapore itself. This might not be like Asian culture as such, but more like Singaporean culture. But yeah, just the amount of races and ethnicities that are in Singapore. There are 4 main ones, so that's Chinese, Malay, Indian, and then other, which counts kind of like Eurasians and things like that. People. But like, you are immersed in a culture where there is people from all over the world, from all different religious backgrounds. So I really like that about Singapore, and I think that's something that is really quite interesting, and there's no real conflict or issues really that I have noticed myself revolving around kind of race and ethnicities and such like things. So that is actually like a really nice thing to see, especially in like this day and age where we have like so many issues in the Western world with race issues basically. So yeah, that's one real interesting thing that I have learned about Singaporean and I guess Asian culture. My second question is, how did you deal with the culture shock, if there was any culture shock? So first of all, there was a culture shock. Mainly the use of Singlish, which is like a colloquial term for kind of Singaporean and English all mixed together, and by Singaporean that could like literally mean a mix of Chinese, Malay, Indian Tamil, all in like this one kind of mush basically. I remember really struggling when I first got here to understand what anyone was saying to me. The only way I can describe it is like a really strong, thick, what I would call Indian accent, spoken in kind of broken English. It's very strange, and that was something I really had to get used to, because I'd just been told, oh, everyone speaks English, and just like blindly I went in thinking that they would just sound like a British person, which obviously is not going to happen when you travel like 7,000 miles across the world. So that was like one of the main culture shocks. And then just another kind of shock was the weather. I was expecting it to be hot, like I knew it was going to be really hot. And I had been warned about the humidity, but the humidity here is just another level, just crazy. I don't know if it's just because I'm white and come from the UK where it's like not hot at all, but the humidity is tough. I would still say that I struggle on like a daily basis with the weather. So yeah, that came as like a really big shock as well. The third question is, what is the workload like at my university? So I go to Nanyang Technological University, which is in the west side of Singapore. I'm still studying history, which is my major. Last semester I did 2 modules outside of my major, so that was one in film studies and one in sociology. This semester I'm just doing all history courses. I take 5 courses per semester to like meet my equivalent in the UK. I have a lot more contact hours than I do at Warwick. I have, how many do I have? Each course has a lecture, and 3 of my courses have a seminar as well. So that's, and then each lecture is 2 to 3 hours long, and each seminar is between like 1 and 3 hours. So that's a lot more contact hours than I have in Warwick. So in that sense, you could say that the workload is a lot more because I'm having to go to a lot more classes. But in the same sense, I have had the opportunity to choose courses that aren't like on the same level as my year group. So I don't just have to choose year 3 history courses. I could do first year courses, I could do final year courses. So this semester I chose to do all first year and second year courses, because the last sem I accidentally took a final year course and it was just so much work, and being on exchange is not really what you want to be doing. This semester I was a bit more clever with my timetable and picked first and second year modules. So in that sense my workload is probably less because it's not quite as intense. But then again, the Singaporean work ethic is a lot more intense than it is in the UK. There's a much higher expectation from students themselves and from their parents to work a lot harder. Grades also count from first into fourth year. Every year is part of your degree, unlike the UK where first year tends to just be like 40%, like pass fail. So there's like pressure from day one basically. Workload for me this semester isn't too bad. I have because I do history, the majority of my assessed work is essay based, and then we have a lot more focus on group work such as like presentations, group discussion, group assignments, which is nice because we don't do that much at Warwick. But overall, the workload for me personally hasn't been too much because I am on pass-fail this year, which means I only need 40% overall. And so far, how I find with the marking system is I'm actually doing better than I was doing at Warwick. So I don't know if there's just like a different level of expectations compared to NTU to Warwick, or is it just because they see exchange student at the top of my essay and just kind of just want to pass me or want to do whatever. So I don't know how their marking system really works. I don't think it's a fair test because I'm on exchange. I'm not here as like a full-time undergrad. So yeah, that's how I feel about the workload in Singapore. My fourth question is based on the student lifestyle in Singapore and I guess in NTU more generally. So student life is quite different from in the UK. There's not so much of a focus on going out, clubbing, drinking, that kind of thing, which I do miss a little bit. Like I love going out at home. I'm not a massive drinker, but I do love going out. So I do miss it a bit, but they kind of replace that with other things. So for example, there's a lot more focus on getting involved with your halls. So I do a cappella, which if you don't know is like singing without musical instruments kind of thing, so you just use your voice. So I do hall a cappella a few times a week, and that tends to like go on till like quite late in the evening. And then I also play water polo, which also happens twice a week and goes on till very late in the evening. And then we also always go for dinner afterwards, so that kind of takes like a big part of your evening up. So I've tended to notice that the majority of students here will get very involved with either the halls or a sports club to kind of make it for what we kind of do as going out in the evening. And also I think there's a lack of that kind of drinking culture because alcohol here is so expensive. So yeah, as a student we can't really afford it all that much. And another thing is that if you did want to go clubbing, it would mean going into the city, which to drive would probably take about 25 minutes. To go on public transport it would take about 40 minutes. So that kind of just adds to the extra effort of like even getting in there before your night even starts. So I don't really mind it too much. I'm not saying that you can't drink at all or like there's not that kind of student life culture. I know a lot of the exchange students here do go out on a regular basis, do go out into the city, do drink a lot. But to me, first of all, I feel like it's not quite in my budget to be doing that all the time. And also, I'm not a big drinker and I just didn't really want to go out that much this year, and that's fine, I would like to think. So, I mean, I've enjoyed myself doing all the other things that I have been doing. So yeah, so my kind of student life and the student life in Singapore is a little different from the UK, but different isn't always a bad thing, I guess. So yeah. So my fifth question is about my accommodation. So I got very lucky with my accommodation in NTU. I'm in a very new and modern set of kind of apartment blocks. They were built in 2014, so I think they're the second newest set of blocks in the whole campus, so I got very lucky. I also was lucky in the fact that I got a single room because having a roommate here is also kind of the norm, and that was something I was a bit anxious about because in the UK we don't really have the roommate system, so it was kind of a new concept to me. And also I knew that I would be phoning home at like silly hours of the day sometimes because of the time difference, so I didn't want to feel like I wouldn't be able to do that because I had a roommate. So I got very lucky with my room. I do really like it. I don't have much stuff in here because I couldn't pack all that much stuff. It does the job, you know. The beds were a bit uncomfortable at first, but I've kind of just got used to that now. I share a bathroom and it gets cleaned like twice a day, every day, so that's nice. And like on my floor there's about 30 rooms, and we're all girls on this floor, and it like goes girls boys like per floor. And so I share like a bathroom with like 15 girls, but I've never had to queue or anything. And there's like 2 toilets and like 3 sinks and then 2 showers, and there's 2 actual bathroom blocks, so you never have to wait, which is really good. And yeah, so actually like downstairs we have a canteen. There's not really that much choice, which is kind of annoying, but like it kind of does the job if you're really just desperate to get something. We also have a study room downstairs, which is like aircon, there's loads of desks, there's plugs, which is good if you don't want to like just walk over to the library. We also have a small gym downstairs, which is a bit kind of rubbish. It's just got the basic kind of things, but like you have no excuse if you're into the gym because there is literally a gym downstairs and it's free, so that's really good as well. And we also have like this big, like, we call it the function hall. It's basically for like performances. There's like a stage and everything like that, so we do a lot of like the a cappella performances we do in there, so that's really cool as well. So that's what my accommodation is like. In regards to price and compared to Warwick, my rent per week is half the price that I paid for my rent in halls in first year. So it comes to around £85 per week. And I would say that I've got better quality halls here, except for the fact that I don't have a kitchen, but we have the canteen to kind of equal that one out. So it's a lot cheaper than I was paying in the UK, which is always a nice thing. So yeah, that's basically everything about my accommodation. Okay, so number 6 is a good one, and it's how did I budget, or how do I budget on a regular basis when I'm living out here. I do most of my kind of university spends, so for example food, books, laundry, things like that, I tend to do from my student finance that I receive from the Welsh Government, and also my accommodation comes out of that as well. So my accommodation rent is paid in one full sum per semester at the beginning of the semester, so I paid that in January, so I don't have to worry about paying it monthly, and all my bills and everything are included in that, so that's just like done and out of the way. And then food here is generally like really cheap, so I don't have to worry too much about budgeting. Back home I budget quite a lot because when I do a big food shop, I have to make sure that I stay under like maximum of £30 a week. Whereas here, I'm not too concerned as much because the price of food is so much more cheaper. So I don't really have to worry too much about my budget as I did kind of last year at Warwick. The only thing I would say about budgeting is that I have tended to like save on like food, and I guess save from not going out as much and not spending money on alcohol for then being able to travel around like the nearby countries in Southeast Asia. So I've kind of budgeted some money which probably would have gone on kind of my living costs into adding on to my savings for travelling, which has been really beneficial actually. I've been like really lucky. Also in regards to budgeting, lots of people have asked me how I've been able to fly kind of back and forth to the UK. I've been home since August. I've been home twice. So I went once for New Year, and the second time I went home in my recess week, which was the 8th week of my second semester. Lots of people have asked me how I've been able to afford it because it's around £600 return, but I'm very lucky in that the Welsh Government pays for 3 return flights for me during my exchange. Not really sure why. I think just the Welsh government are nice, and I think it's because I don't qualify for the Erasmus grant, which people who study in Europe get a grant to kind of help them out a bit. I don't really know too much about Erasmus grants, so I might be wrong, but because we don't qualify for that because we're more international, I think the government figured because plane fares are so high that they would kind of reimburse you for that. So that's another thing in regards to travel. Another thing I forgot to mention about my budgeting is travelling around Singapore. So the main form of transport are buses and the MRT, which is the train system. And again, that is super, super cheap. So if you want to get from my side of the country, which is right on the west coast, to the complete other side, to the airport, for example, which is right on the east coast, so that's like an hour and a half journey, it would cost you $4 return, which is the equivalent of £2. So you can kind of see the comparison to the UK. So I haven't had to worry too much about my budget, basically. My 7th question is, where have I travelled to and how easy has it been to travel? So the first place that I travelled to last semester was a city called Penang, which is in the northwest part of Malaysia. It's an island just off Malaysia, I think. I went there for a long weekend, so I went there for around 4 days, 3 nights, I think. And we took a plane from Singapore to Penang, stayed there for 1 night, then we travelled on a coach down to the Cameron Highlands, which is like the rural area of Malaysia, and stayed there for 2 nights. And then went back up to Penang, flew from Penang to Singapore. That was my first trip. Yeah, and I would say it was pretty easy. We had a few issues with the coach that took us over to the Cameron Highlands, didn't stop where it was meant to stop, basically. Once we got over to the island, we then took a taxi kind of over the other side of the island where our accommodation was. We'd booked the accommodation through Airbnb, basically, and it was a bit difficult to find, actually. The instructions that they'd given us were a bit confusing, but we found it eventually, so that was fine. So that was my second trip, and again, very easy. Probably less people on Tioman Island were that great at speaking English, but still we managed to get by fine. One issue on the coach coming back, as we were going through like Malaysia into Singapore, the coach kind of left us at the immigration point because they were confused. They didn't realise we wanted to go back into the city, so I think it was just a bit of confusion. But that's fine because we were back in Singapore at that point, so it wasn't really too much of an issue. My third trip was to Bali with my boyfriend, and we took a flight from Singapore to Bali, and then it was around a half-hour taxi ride to another Airbnb in the south of Bali, in Kuta. Bali was great. Again, a lot of people speak English. The only issue I'd say about Bali is that the best way to get around is either on a motorcycle or via kind of like Uber or Grab taxis. Getting to Bali was fine. Like, the flights were actually, in fact, a lot of the flights from Singapore to various places in Southeast Asia are very, very cheap. And there are often like a lot of sales on for like AirAsia and Scoot, which are the main 2 kind of budget airlines for Southeast Asia. So you can always grab like a really good deal. So yeah, that was my third trip. But I sound like I ride jet setter. I do love travelling though. My fourth trip then was to Phuket in Thailand with my friend Kat from America. And we basically just went on a long weekend. We found really cheap flights, a really good deal in a fancy kind of like resort hotel. It's like right in the midst of like revision, and we're like, you know what, just treat yourself and let's go and just chill for like a long weekend. So we went to an area of Phuket called Patong. We got really cheap flights over there. The hotel organised for us to get a taxi to the hotel. Like, someone came to pick us up, which was really good. And then the hotel was lovely. We had breakfast included. We also had a massage included. So it was just like really, really relaxing, really, really great. And then they gave us the hotel like organised a lift to take us back to the airport when we'd finished our trip. So overall, that was also a really good, successful and easy trip. My final trip was just at the start of the Christmas holidays. I went on an 11-day tour of Vietnam from north to south with my friend Jolly from uni, and we actually joined a company called Gecko Adventure Tours, which is basically a company which organises tours for students aged 19 to 29, I think. There was actually 8 of us in total, and we had our own tour guide who spoke English and Vietnamese very, very well. And yeah, so we just toured. That was probably like the easiest one because our tour guide like looked after us the whole time. All our transport was organised, all our hotels were organised, which is great because barely anyone in Vietnam speaks English, so that would have been a real issue if we'd done it like without going through a company. So yeah, that was probably one of the most easiest trips. And again, flights out there and back were like extremely cheap in the grand scheme of things, so that was also really good. Yeah, so that's been kind of my travelling so far. I've booked my flights to go to Hong Kong, which I'm doing as soon as I finish my exams. So I leave on the 10th of May and I'm staying there for around, I think 2 nights, 3 days, I think, with my friend from college who lives in Hong Kong. So that's my last trip at the moment. However, there may be, sorry, I look like a hair. However, there may be another trip on the cards. I don't know, I'm not sure. So yeah, that is basically where I've been travelling since I've been on my study exchange. My 8th question is, what and where are my favourite spots in Singapore? By this, I don't really know what the person meant. I don't know whether they meant like food or shopping or just chilling out, whatever, but just the downtown area. Like, I actually really like just walking around Raffles area with the big like central business district area with all the big skyscrapers. Like, I'm walking along the Singapore River. I just really like the architecture there and it's really, really cool. I also like Holland Village is really cool. It's a bit more westernized. A lot of expats live there. There's some really cool like cafes and coffee shops, which I like. My favourite shopping mall, if I was to say that, would either be Jurong East shopping malls, which is actually like 3 shopping malls. They have all the shops you could possibly want, and they also have an outlet mall which has like everything for a lot cheaper, so like Nike, Adidas, New Balance, like all of those kind of brands in like outlet prices, so it's like super good. I don't know, Singapore's just cool. Like, I like just going out and just exploring and walking around and just seeing what cool places there I can discover. There's a lot of different like cute and quirky coffee shops, so if you're bored you can literally just go out and just like go and explore those. So yeah, that's probably what I would say to answer that question. So my 9th question is, what are the top things that you should eat if you come to Singapore? If you don't already know, Singapore is known for its food and also its food lovers. Every Singaporean is obsessed with food. So it's definitely a big thing if you're planning to travel here. But the top things I would say would be try dim sum. I was really skeptical about trying dim sum when I first got here because it really isn't the most attractive looking food, but honestly it's definitely worth trying and it actually tastes so, so good. My favourite place to eat dim sum is a place called Swee Choon, which is like in the downtown area somewhere, and like yeah, it's like my favourite dim sum place ever. Another thing that people should try, I mean, there's like this thing called carrot cake, which is like not what we would think of as carrot cake, but it's actually just this like fried radish and things. I don't even know how to describe it. I'll try and put like a picture in somewhere. But yeah, it's really, really good, and you kind of just have it with like lots of different things. So you can have like that, and then like a plate of noodles and like rice or like a meat dish or whatever, but it's a really different thing that is definitely worth trying. Another thing which I've only tried recently would be laksa, I don't know how you pronounce it, which is actually really good. And again, I was really skeptical because it just doesn't look like the most appealing thing. It's basically noodles with bits of fish and all in kind of like a spicy coconut milk curry dish thing. I'll try and put a picture in here, which I took the other day. But yeah, laksa is definitely something that you should try, because again, it's pretty Singaporean, and yeah, it's just definitely something you should try. So that's like the few things that I would recommend to anyone who wants to try out some new foods. So number 10 is there anything that I regret about my study exchange, and how have I felt throughout the whole process? In regards to regrets, the only regret I would have is wasting 3 to 4 weeks at the beginning of my exchange feeling so homesick, so lonely and upset. I really wish I could go back in time and just really enjoy that extra amount of time that I had, which I feel like I wasted a little bit, but I really did struggle with settling in at first. I came over here knowing no one at all, like I didn't come over with people from my uni. It was inevitable that I was going to be lonely and homesick, but it did hit me pretty hard. That's probably something I regret now, is that I didn't really make the most of that time, because now I'm really trying to make the most of like every minute of my day, because I know my time here is racing by. And then overall, how have I felt about the whole exchange experience? I think it's actually been incredible, and I don't want to like go on and on about how it's changed me as a person and all this stuff, but I definitely think it has given me the time and the space to really think about myself, and then also think about my future, and just put a lot of things in perspective basically. It's made me realise what I should be grateful for. It's also made me realise just how you can really immerse yourself into a brand new way of life, and it's possible. It's not something that you should be afraid of, which I think changes in life happen throughout your life. It should be something that people aren't scared about, this like kind of change and trying something new. But overall now I'm feeling sad because I really don't want it to come to an end, and now I'm really enjoying it. The time is just racing by, so as I said, I'm really trying to make the most of my time now, and not think about it too much that I'm going to be leaving soon, because it does make me quite upset. But apart from that, like, I do feel great here, and I do really, really like it here, and yeah, I'm actually really going to miss it, and I hope that I'll be able to come back in the future sometime. So yeah, that's how I feel overall about the whole experience basically. Okay guys, so that is the end of my Q&A. I hope you enjoyed everything that has been like covered. If you have any more questions, please feel free to just like drop me a comment below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see some more videos that I post, I do cover things like fitness, places that I travel, and then just other kind of sit down chats with me. So if you'd be interested in that, please subscribe to my channel. And I also have my own personal blog, which I update on a weekly basis, and the link to that can be found below as well. So please check that out if you do have some time. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next